What I'm about to share with you is the single greatest enemy of your podcast. This thing will destroy and make your podcast fail faster than anything. It is so elusive that most people miss it, and it's right in front of them. It's a concept of life that applies in other areas, but for some odd reason, new podcasters and established podcasters alike, they don't tend to see it. Hi, I'm Brian Fleming. I'm the founder of the Podgasm Marketing Podcast, where I show you how to say what you do clearly and in a compelling way on your podcast, so other people who are the right people you're trying to attract will find and listen to and subscribe to your podcast. And by the way, if you haven't grabbed it already, make sure you go grab the free Speak Your Listeners Language PDF. It's a simple 3-page PDF with only a few very strong, powerful tips on it on one of the pages that will show you how to start saying what you do in a clear and compelling way so it's attractive to more of the kinds of listeners you want. So your numbers will grow, your downloads will grow, you can monetize your podcast, and you can get your message out to the world in a big way, because if they can't find you or they can't recognize you when they see you, they won't listen to you. So go grab that right now. There's a link in the description, or you can just go to podgasmshow.com. So here's the deal. Here's the thing. Here's the greatest enemy that can and will destroy your podcast, and it will creep up on you. And most people don't see it, which is why many, if not most, new podcasts eventually fail. I learned this concept when I was fighting the ground war in Afghanistan back in 2006. Most of everything I teach is battlefield military mindset, because when push comes to shove and it comes to survival, whether it's of your life or of your podcast, military style stuff works. It's been trained and honed over hundreds of years to recognize things about your enemy and to capitalize them in order to win and beat the enemy before the enemy beats you. So here's the deal about your podcast. Here's the thing that will destroy your podcast faster than anything. It's called fog, as in the fog of war. Have you ever heard that concept? The fog of war. Basically, the concept is this. You get so familiar with an environment or a message or a thing or a skill that you just sort of assume other people know a lot about it, but at the same time, you get comfortable. I'm a motorcycle rider, and one of the most dangerous things you can do on a motorcycle is get so good at it that you become comfortable riding it, which means you pay attention less, because that's where the risks really start to increase. So it's no different with your podcast, okay? There is a fog of war around your podcast, and that fog of war has everything to do with you knowing so much about your podcast topic that you forget that other people don't. But here's the thing. The fog of war affords you two things. One, you get so familiar with your environment that you overlook things that can help you. But secondly, and more tragically, you get so familiar with your environment that you start overlooking easy things to avoid that can destroy you. In Afghanistan, it was overlooking IEDs. If we knew how to identify bombs buried in the road, we could avoid them. And, sometimes you get so familiar in an environment that you get lazy with it. Well, that happens with your podcast too. And it happens with how you talk about it, how you talk about your podcast brand and marketing messaging. You assume that since something worked for someone else, it'll work for you. And that's not always the case. Or you assume that the way you say things, people understand what you're saying, and it's not always true. So the fog of war can manifest itself in a number of ways. One of the ways is that you think your podcast is for anybody and everybody, or it's for a very broad, general group of people, and you have not niched down specifically. Trust me, I know as a creator and podcaster myself, I absolutely hate the fact of having to niche down and pick one thing. It's insane, because I'm a super creative. I hate that. That's the worst thing in the world, telling me to pick one. I want to try everything, okay? But you have to get very specific with who you serve, with who you speak to, and what their problem is. What is their fog of war? What is keeping them back from what they want to figure out and accomplish and know? That's why your podcast exists. But if you are stuck in your own fog of war, the most elusive thing about the fog of war is that you don't realize it's happening. It's the frog in the boiling water. You don't realize it's happening. And before you know it, you're in this sort of slumber, this fog, this confusion with your brand and marketing messaging. And you're saying things that you might be talking about what you're doing, but you're not saying them in a compelling way. You're not saying them in a clear way that somebody can understand and know very quickly as they're scrolling through their podcast feed that you are for them. All right. Stop having people scroll past your podcast because the way you talk about it isn't working. All right. Look, at the Podcast and Marketing Podcast, that's what I talk about doing. Getting clarity on your brand and marketing messaging for your podcast. Using military style communication, battlefield communication strategies that we actually used in a war where life and death was the consequence of winning or losing. Okay. So look, maybe you're looking at me saying, Brian, hey, I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a professional speaker like you. Doesn't matter. I take on a couple of clients every month, just a select few, and I help them, right? And I rewrite all their brand messaging for them. I will look at what you're going for right now. Look at your podcast. I'll look at who your target audience is. I'll look at all these different metrics of your podcast, and some of the stuff you're probably not even asking simply because you don't know to ask. All right. Now I'm going to break things down for you and rewrite your brand messaging for your podcast and your marketing messaging for you. It could be your about section, your description, your podcast episode titles, your episode descriptions. When you use the right words to describe what you do, more of the right people show up, listen, and subscribe to your podcast and end up buying from you and allow you to monetize in the short and long term. So look, if you want me to take a look at it, I only take on a few clients a month, but hey, shoot me an email at podgasmshow@gmail.com, podgasmshow@gmail.com, and just put in the subject line, consult, okay? And what I'm going to do, we'll jump on a quick call, and I just want to hear about your podcast for a few minutes and see if I can help you. I don't work with everybody. I'm not for everybody. But shoot me an email, and let's see if we're a good fit, and I will help you. I will do all the mental weightlifting. I just came from the gym right here. All the mental weightlifting with the words and everything that you're not maybe good at, but that's one of the few things I actually am good at. And I will help you rewrite all your brand and marketing messaging for your podcast so your podcast will continue to grow. So send me an email right now at podgasmshow@gmail.com, and I'll talk to you soon.